team led by a superintendent of police to focus on these groups that have been targeting ATMs and cash transit vehicles. In the medium term, the government will be accelerating the requisite amendment to the Private Security Regulation Authority Act to allow for specialized training of security guards given the increased threat environment. In addition, we'll be engaging the banking sector for establishing minimum standards for the placement and hardening of ABM machines. We will continue to engage all stakeholders to ensure that minimum operating standards are established and adhered to at all venues where where money transit operates. We'll do what it takes to protect the lives of the security guards and the assets of our hardworking Jamaicans who are affected by this current spate of attack on the cash transit operations. In my recent sectoral debate presentation, I called the attention of the people of Jamaica to the fact that the threat environment in Jamaica has changed. Criminal terrorists, such as the ones that have been carrying out the attacks on cash transfer services, are organized and callous. Ongoing investment in the police human and physical resources has improved police capacity and efficiency. Our investment program continues, as well as the targeting of vulnerable communities for meaningful and sustainable social transformation and the digitization of our force. In closing, I want to again invite the public to visit the JSAFE Transformation Expo, May 11 to 14, see firsthand the significant technological transformation in the police force. I urge also the public to cooperate and provide necessary information to the police emergency call number wherever they observe any unusual activity, especially where in the vicinity of banks and ATM machines, or where they have sight of any vehicle involved in the money transfer and transit. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Members of the media, any questions?
Thank you very much, Dr. Chang. Thank you very much, Dr. Chang. We will now take questions. I'm sure members of the media will have some questions for Dr. Chang in light of what he just read, presented, and I trust you'll also have questions for me, hopefully not. But Dr. Chang is available. Alexander.
Thank you. Morning, Minister.
Yes.
With the well, you just mentioned the situation with the cash transit companies, the private security companies. Yeah. Just wondering if there has been discussion between, say, the JCF, JDF, about working in tandem with the private security companies. It seems like it's mainly beryllium at this point, to get them over what seems to be these targeted attacks. If there's going to be any further assistance in that regard. I have another question, if that's okay. So the second question, sir, is something I had asked last week. What steps, if any, is the government looking to take as it relates to stemming the flow of guns from the U.S. into Jamaica, especially given the fact that there's really not much we can do on our end unless something is done from a state level from the U.S. Yeah, those are my questions.
Thank you. I'll take both questions. The first one first. Yeah. The responsibility to protect Jamaican assets and Jamaican citizens is strictly with the Jamaica Consolidated Force. The issue of the attack on the cash management system, mainly on the vehicles during the transit operation, has had the attention of the police from very early on. In fact, even before there was any actual event, the police intelligence indicated there are movements by individuals to carry out robberies against areas with high cash, that was handling cash, and they having, in fact, made interception. They continue to work closely with their stakeholders, but yes, they have had discussion with the security companies, and in particular Beryllium, which is the only cash management operator. Other companies are involved in cash transfer and transit, but Beryllium handles cash management and handles maybe huge amounts of cash across the country for all the banks. It is therefore imperative that we hold discussion to look at how we can mitigate this problem, because the primary victims are a wide cross-section of Jamaican workers. The 8 to 4 worker who gets the salary through the bank and has to go to an ATM machine to get whatever cash he needs. It is unfortunate, but Jamaica's economy is still very much a cash economy, and the service is crucial for the efficient operation of the economy and for the convenience of our workers and small businesses across the island. When an ATM machine is removed from a small district like, say, Darlington or Cambridge, the entire district suffers. The individual who has to then go to a bank hall in Montego Bay or Salvamar to collect the money, it costs them taxi fare, bus fare. It costs the economy in the community, because then the individuals no longer spend their money where they are. They spend the money where they collect it and go straight home. So it has wide implications. And as indicated, we are taking some immediate steps, work with all stakeholders, and we'll be looking at some longer term activities. Our interest in this from the police is to find the perpetrators and prosecute them. That's our primary interest, and we are pursuing this. We have had some arrests in the last case in Portmore, and we have very good intelligence on the current one. As indicated, we have established a specialized unit with members of the relevant formational forces that are pursuing the perpetrators, and we are confident we'll disrupt and prosecute all of the critical elements in this syndicate that has started this operation. On the issue of firearms coming to the country, this has been a priority for the government. We have laid this out from very early on. We made the relevant steps in legislation when we repealed and replaced the old Firearms Act with the new Firearms Prohibition Regulation Firearms Act 2020. In addition to that, we have done we have articulated this very powerfully across the international sphere. The Prime Minister have led that charge for significant changes in the management of the small arms trade across the region, and in particular for the United States to take a stronger position. They have in fact improved their collaboration with Jamaica government. They are members of the ATF in Jamaica, working with the Jamaican police to see how we can stem the flow through our borders. It is correct that we don't manufacture firearms, and therefore the manufacturing country will take some steps. My understanding is that the United States government is taking some additional measures in terms of the illegal export of firearms. In the United States, bearing arms are right. It's a major political issue. So access is fairly easy. So while they'll take steps to manage what goes at the border, we also have to take very strong steps to protect our borders. It's a bigger challenge. We're an island. We have a long coastline with many points of entry, and we have busy ports. We encourage trading through the Kingston Freeport Terminal, and we encourage tourism through Montego Bay, through the airports. So there are major points of entry that has been managed effectively to prevent the flow of illegal arms or contraband goods into the island. We have taken some steps. We have seen the Customs Enforcement Branch working close with the police, have been able to intercept some big shipments, and we have been able to identify other operators, both in collaboration, yes, in North America and locally. And we are looking at how we can, in fact, disrupt more of the syndicates involved in firearms trading in Jamaica. Sometime early in the year when we did have some conviction in the United States. In recent times, it is more local, the base. And it is, in all of this, is critical we, in fact, harden our borders. It does pose some challenges, in particular at the airports, because airports are the principal point of entry of visitors, and the tourism industry is maybe the most dynamic sector of the economy at this point in time. But we are putting in place the required activities, and particularly use of technology. We have scanners at the ports, and we look to expand this kind of activity across all the ports. But the government view this as a major threat risk, and we're taking whatever steps required to ensure we can, in fact, control the flow of illicit goods, and in particular firearms, through our ports of entry, both legal and informal.
Thank you, Dr. Chang. Any other questions? Dr. Arthur?
Morning, Dr. Tang. Arthur Hall from the Jamaica Observer. Dr. Chang, it must have been embarrassing to the administration on Monday when criminals brought the ATM system in the corporate area in St. Catherine to almost a standstill, where people were unable to access most of the ATMs. Your response?
Well, this is a result of the recent attack on the money transfer activity. It's a challenge, and it's a private business. We have a responsibility to protect the assets and the individuals involved. And the government has said, view this very seriously, which is why we have increased the level of attention in terms of, getting the stakeholders together and look at examining what they're doing to see if we meet the standards we require from a security point of view, and looking at how we can add to that. But yes, there's an unfortunate situation that took place, and we have to take the necessary steps to prevent that kind of thing happening. But it's a private business operation which provides a critical service to a country. And when it is disrupted by criminal elements, they have to take steps to manage that. And that's what happened on Tuesday. And the inconvenience to the public was most regrettable. And we will take the required steps to ensure you don't have a repeat of this kind of activity. But bear in mind that the cash management system, in terms of taking money to banks, replenishing ATMs, involve on a daily basis about over 4,000 stops in the island. It's not something you can, put a man-to-man stop, and you will have some successes out there. What you have to do is take some criminal success at some point at this stage. And we have to take the required steps to prevent it from happening by apprehending as well as strengthening the operation at these various points across the island. We're going to do what is necessary.
Any other question for Dr. Chang?
For you.
Oh, thank you, Dr. Chang. Okay. Go ahead.
Morning, ministers. Morning, colleagues. Kimon Francis from the Gleaner. Minister, checking with you the status of Dean Roy Bernard and if the government has reinstated him. If not, how close is the government to reinstating him as ordered by the court? And also, UA has cut their security. What is the government's position on that as a funder of the university?
Well, for the first question, I would not be able to respond. I would have to do some research on that. The assignment of permanent secretaries is not in the remit of me as an executive member of the government. So I would have to check on the status of that for you. We did understand that there were some cuts as announced by the University of the West Indies. It's a matter that is of concern, as there have been incidents on the campus that students have expressed concerns over. And I think that is something that the Minister of Education has been engaged with the university on, and I can get you an update on that as well. Thank you. Any other questions?
Just a follow-up for Minister Chan. You had said syndicates when mentioning the incidents with the attacks on the beryllium bands. Does that mean there's information coming from the security services that this is an organized group, a single organized group attacking in these different areas? And another follow-up would be what's going on with the attempts to extradite crime producers from the United States?
It's a syndicate. When you term single, it's a number of criminal actors collaborating with each other. Intelligence confirmed that, and the ones we have picked up are the kind of the foot soldiers. We understand. I think we have one individual who has some kind of mid-level management, but we are seeking to track down and apprehend those who are masterminding the activities. The robbery in terms of cash had been going on since last year, actually. They started off with supermarkets, went to sports bars with where you get slot machines, and then there was what appeared to be a review of the operations. We have at least one leader in jail who we knew were actively involved, but there are a number of others out there. It doesn't operate as with each other and selecting the ones they consider critical at different points in the island. So we have that much intelligence, and we are pursuing them aggressively. So we have raised the tempo by dedicating a really highly skilled, experienced team of investigators and police officers to focus entirely on the operation of the syndicate. The second part of the question?
The potential extradition of
Yeah.
crime producers from the United States. Yeah.
No, well, there are two aspects to that. In the discussion that the Prime Minister led in Washington, there was the issue of actually apprehending a number of them in the United States, because the leaders who are sending resources here are also coming to criminal activity in the United States. And at least the leadership of one gang was apprehended and prosecuted. On the other hand, we are involved in the extradition of a number of other individuals, which are being pursued now. There is the recent case for in-sport corruption, but in terms of gang members, we don't have any immediate extradition to the United States. We have a number of extradition to the United States of people operating out of Jamaica. And in fact, I think it have been said publicly elsewhere. Last year, there were 24 individuals extradited, and we have a number, fairly long list now, going forward during the course of this year. And those are more involved in advanced fee fraud and money laundering, which has a more direct impact on that side. It's the gun runners we're looking at apprehending and bringing home, and giving them the long life sentences and other sentencing indicated in the new Firearms Act. We are pursuing a number of them, and the investigation at different stages of development.
Thank you, Dr. Chang. Do we have any other questions?
From Radio Jamaica News. The Jamaica Constabulary Force conducted a study, and the study reveals that there has been an increase as it relates to white-collar crimes. The study also suggested that there is a need for more effective measures to prevent and deter these crimes. From a policy standpoint, can you say how and when will the ministry act on the recommendations?
No, in terms of recommendations as to companies taking steps to prevent corruption, that's an internal matter to companies. Auditing, accounting, accountability processes. The government cannot dictate that policy. When they breach, of course, we have legislation that the police will use to lock them up. And we have, in terms of apprehension, it is a section of the police we have strengthened. A lot of that work goes really through the FID and MOCA, but the police CFCD is intimate to all of that, and the fraud squad, as well as CTOC. So all the government agencies collaborate to deal with corruption. And we have seen a number of critical cases come up recently, but others have taken some time. I think it's pure coincidence that they were arresting one operating group recently. There was another gang that took in some time, which is more involved in corruption, and of course, recent cases that have been pending for some time. So that aspect of the work we consider crucial. And while it does not have visible felon in terms of identifying individuals who might be pulling the trigger and killing people, the financial frauds interlock with the criminal felons, quite frankly, and we have to deal with all of them. And we are taking steps to strengthen aspects of the policing that is required to investigate and apprehend and lock down the white-collar criminals, as much as we want to get rid of the criminal terrorists who are killing Jamaican citizens, and will continue to work and apply as much resources required.
Follow up to that question as it relates to legislation. For example, is there any consideration to increase acts such as the Larceny Act? I know you have said before, plans to increase the cybercrime acts, but when it comes to sentencing and prosecuting persons convicted of fraud, we see where perhaps they'll just get like a 7-year sentence based on the time spent in prison based on mitigation, but there is an increase. So is there any plans to amend the act so that it will carry more weight in terms of
Well,
penalty?
Much of that depends on the jurisprudence of the courts, which we can't dictate in terms of, and once they go to court, the judge has pretty broad flexibility. We have, in fact, taken steps in some areas they are aware, where felons on the country, especially firearms and Offense Against the Persons Act, to create minimum penalty, minimum sentencing regimes. It's an area that I said we approach with some caution, but we do so deliberately rather than just widely. But bear in mind that recently, when we amended the anti-gang legislation, a number of those criminal acts was brought within the anti-gang regime. So things like common lasting was brought into the picture in the anti-gang. So if one is prosecuted, one therefore can be prosecuted under anti-gang legislation where the gang is involved in common lasting or other such activities. And thus, in those situations, then the longer sentences and more severe act regime will apply. But again, sentencing by and large is the discretion of the judges.
Thank you very much.
Follow up to what he said just now.
Yeah.
Sure.
Right. So you're saying that it is up to the judge, but in a case where it, and you mentioned the anti-gang legislation, but in a case where it is a single person, it would not fall under the anti-gang legislation.
No.
Right. So I'm asking as it relates to that and not under the anti-gang legislation, but specifically the Larceny Act.
No, as I said, the larceny act on itself depends on the circumstance, and therefore on the circumstance of the prosecution and the judges. I wouldn't seek to interfere there as yet.
Thank you, Dr. Chang. We have another question.
Morning, Jamila from TVJ. Hello, Minister. Recently there was a protest in Hannahtown in West Kingston, and it was particularly different because this time residents were protesting about gangsters. And we know the situation in communities like this. What do you make of, what the police describes as a first for them there? And
No, repeat that.
what do you make of, what the police describes as the protest, a first of its kind
Yeah.
for them there? And are there any plans to rehabilitate the Hannahtown police station? I know that was destroyed in the West Kingston incursion about 12 years ago, 13 years ago.
Well, they're increasing support for citizens back to the police, and we are very pleased with that. Therefore, seeing somebody protesting on behalf of security is a good omen in a difficult community. But that's will depend over time as the police gets more effective and demonstrate greater efficiency. And critically, in the case of that region, we have had a zone of special operation nearby. We have had several state of public emergency. There has been pretty heavy police presence, and therefore it suggests citizens are more willing to speak up and hopefully provide evidence where required. In terms of Hannahtown Police Station, that's a decision that the police should have to, high command will have to make. The fact is, my understanding in today's policing is not so much a physical station that makes a difference. It's the dynamic deployment of the police officer, the ability to move, to be present where they are required, and pretty much the communication and linkages in the community and their intelligence capacity, which tells them how to move, where to go. And I said, oftentimes my understanding, in fact, it is better for them to operating in a dynamic role than a static role. A police station really, officers on a fixed point, when in fact officers need to be moving around the zone they're involved in. But I said the decision is to where a police location is located or activated is the police high command decision. But just as criminals change their mode of operation, policing has changed in recent times.
This is for Minister Morgan.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Kimon?
Minister, does the government have any discomfort with the local votes, if I can put it that way, the outcome of the local votes up by Yui, read the principal. And as has been reported, and does the government have any discomfort with what appears to be leaks from the cabinet in terms of a potential reshuffle?
Well, I'm unaware of any leaks from the cabinet in terms of a reshuffle. Um, I can say to you that the Prime Minister has not discussed a reshuffle in cabinet, and I've been to every single cabinet meeting since last year, January. So wherever you're getting those leaks from, it's not from the cabinet. Um, pardon? No, there has been no leaks from the cabinet because Prime Minister has not discussed it. Reshuffling is a prerogative solely of the Prime Minister, and he has not discussed it at cabinet. As it relates to the leaks from the University of the West Indies recruitment process, I think what is clear is that there are persons who are intent on undermining the process. I mean, you're leaking what is supposedly persons' scores and their, I don't remember what the term that they were using, psychometric. That's an invasion of privacy. And that is actually, that undermines it undermines the privacy of the individuals who have applied, that such private information would come out. And it also undermines the integrity and credibility of the process. And I think for persons who may have been a part of the process to do that, it says a lot more about their interest in fairness than anything else about the process. But as that matter is within the remit of the university, and we will allow the university to carry out whatever investigation it needs to. And at the end of the day, the process will decide on the successful outcome of the issue. Government is not going to comment on that, other than what I have just said. Are there any other questions? Alexander?
Yeah, one more. Sorry about that. Last year there was a push to have more social workers, I believe, involved in the ZOSO. But there's also a lack of social workers across the island. Just wondering how that program is going in ZOSO, and if there is a program to boost the numbers of social workers, and if so, how that is going.
No, well, that side of the crime fighting is proceeding. It has gone to a slow pace than what I'd have liked, but in terms of the zones, they're going very well. There's significant reduction in criminal activity. There's major interfacing with the community in there, and we have had reports, as you'd have seen in the media, from time to time, of young men being graduating and getting into work from their skill training program. We have had intervention in terms of parenting. We are actively involved in upgrading the schools and ensuring that they provide the kind of service that is deemed required for those communities. Because much of what happens in there and what will prevent the recruitment or the recruitment into gangs has to do with just reaching the families in those communities. Social workers are critical to that. It's among the reasons we have seen that we made significant changes to compensation of social workers. It's one category of workers who had literally a redefinition of their role from a salary point of view in government. So the program goes on. There's ongoing recruitment because there was never enough on the ground. We expect with a new approach, both in terms of the expanded and increasing level of a focus on their work, as well as some better compensation, will attract the required personnel to be able to intervene early and effectively in the zones of special operations we have been doing, but also in the wider communities that are constant challenge.
Do we have another question?
Hi, for the Minister Chang again. Recently we saw some reports about the state of lockups at some police stations. I know you released a statement contradicting some of the lockups. There's one in particular at the Sav police station Are you able to say, what's the state of the condition there? Because I know the plumbing issue was a major concern. We did a report on that. And two, are you able to say whether or not the timeline is in keeping with the construction of the new police station in Grange Hill?
The new police station in Grange Hill.
Yeah, the new one in Westmoreland, right? I know
Right.
construction has
Okay.
begun, but you can tell me if you're
No,
on
the
par.
Savannah police station has some challenges, but the lockups major work was done. The lockups very recently. I think it was early last year, but there is still issues of drainage problems around there. Savannah as a town has a very high water table and it provides a challenge. But those lockups there had significant repairs done, and we're looking at how we can improve on it still. The ones in Kingston is different. We could deny those without any hesitation. Work in what was alleged about West Kingston. The station is not perfect, but those allegations are incorrect. But Salomar do have issues, as I said, with plumbing and drainage, which we are working on. There are two stations being constructed in Salomar. Currently in Westmoreland, there's the Froome station, which is quite advanced, and there's one at Little London. That's the new station. And the procurement for the new major station, which will relieve of some of the challenges that exist at the Salomar station, a new divisional headquarters, which could become an area headquarters, is in its final stage of procurement. In fact, I'd expect we will begin in the second half of this year actual construction. In terms of procurement, they have been tendered, and the process is going through the procurement process.
Thank you. Thank you. Do we have any other questions? All right. In light of that, I just want to make one comment as it relates to World Press Freedom Day. I was privileged to listen to an interview this morning and also saw a press release from the Media Association of Jamaica regarding Jamaica's position on the Freedom Index. I think Jamaica has a positive history as it relates to press freedom. The mere fact that we sit here this morning where members of the media are able to ask questions unrestricted is a testament to the commitment that governments across administrations have made to press freedom. We know that there are challenges globally as it relates to press freedom. And we as a government in a free and democratic society support all journalists throughout the world who continue to fight to bring information to the public. I myself, coming from the newsroom, recognize the importance of information dissemination and the importance of a free and fair media to democracy. The current index states that Jamaica has fallen. But what is also important to note is that the current index is not the same as the previous index. The methodology has changed, and if you read the report, you will see that they have revealed that they have changed the methodology. And they've also said that you cannot use, or you must be careful in assessing this year's score and rank and comparing it to the previous rank. Nonetheless, we are very thankful that Jamaica remains one of the top countries in terms of press freedom. This government has made significant strides in that. There are challenges such as the passage of the new Access to Information Act, which is currently going through the process. It's now at the AG's department. We're awaiting that to start another joint select committee for us to review it. But journalists can be assured that this government is committed to press freedom. And I want to say to all journalists who are attending here today, but I don't know if I should say happy for World Press Freedom Day, but I want to say congratulations on the work that you have been doing, even though we may not always agree. Why is Kimon looking at me like that? Even though we may not always agree, for the most part, I think we have a positive relationship. And with that, we're ending early this morning. I want to thank all of you for coming. I want to thank Dr. Chang for being here this morning. I also want to thank the support staff from the GIS team, from OPM, also from PBCJ, as well as those online who are listening and watching. Please have a wonderful and safe day. Until next time, that's it from me from the Post-Cabinet Press Briefing for today, the 3rd of May, 2023.
Do you need graphic design services? Or maybe you need branding for your business? How about multimedia production services? Contact Browns Media and Graphics at 876-877-1870. Browns Media and Graphics, developing your ideas, creating your style. Do you need graphic design services? Or maybe you need branding for your business? How about multimedia production services? Contact Browns Media and Graphics at 876-877-1870.
Building your
Browns
online
Media and
business.
Graphics, developing your ideas,
Go to Wix.com
creating your
and set
style.
up your store on a single integrated platform. Add products,